The Rip City Drive.
Bring it on.
All right. He is part of the Coast to Coast podcast, also 98.7 Suns postgame show, also KSRN down in Arizona, part of the Believe podcast network. He's on Twitter at Flex from Jersey. Felix Flex Cruz is back on the Rip City Drive. What's up, my brother?
Chad, my brother, Dwight, Godfather, what's good, guys? Happy to be on with y'all.
Oh, dude, it's so good to talk hoop with you, especially as we get ready for Game 5 of the NBA Finals. Here's the question that we have going around right now off the Shams report that the Pelicans are looking to move up in the draft and have access to Scoot Henderson. If you were the Trailblazers, would you forfeit the number 3 pick and the necessary salary to make a deal for Zion?
Oh man, that's a great question, and I've heard the rumors about the Pelicans trying to move up to get Scoot. And to answer that question, it's pretty simple to me, guys. Are we getting in shape Zion in uniform, or are we getting out of shape dude in street clothes? Like that's what it comes down to. The kid is fantastic. Listen, Zion has talent to the moon, man. But there are questions. There are questions about his work ethic, his weight. Can he sustain that body weight playing at that level without getting injured? These are all things, and I'm a big believer in the team that's got him knows him better than anybody. You know, so if they're willing to give up Zion Williamson for Scoot Henderson, that looks like a red flag right there. And so there are some questions there. But I mean, Zion, if you can get the guy that actually plays basketball with that talent, you got to entertain it. So I think I'm right in the middle with this one, man. I think you got to do some serious homework on this one before you pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point about, hey, if they're willing to make that deal, that's a red flag. At the same time, I think I like what you said after that, which is, man, you got to look into it because he's so enormously talented. If you could find a key that will unlock the great Zion in uniform, in shape, you got a perennial all-star, right?
Absolutely. You know what I think the key is? Get that kid in the room with Moses Malone. Like
he did it for Charles.
Had the same problem.
Yeah,
Charles had the same problem, and he got with Moses Malone, and Moses was able to transform that guy's career. But I say that kiddingly about Moses, but you know, yeah, I mean, if the kid's in shape and you can get him ultra motivated, you got a generational talent in Zion Williamson. I believe in the talent. I just don't believe in what we've seen thus far, and that's pretty scary. That's pretty scary because I want him to reach his max, but. You know, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, don't call it a dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I get it, yeah. What about Brandon Ingram? Would you make the deal for him?
That's a different story. I love Brandon Ingram, and he's got injury history too. I mean, he's dealing with a bad turf toe last year, and that's a scary injury. I know a couple of my friends that are pro athletes that have dealt with that injury, and that's not something to play with. But he's another ultra-talented young man who can really change the game, is really dynamic, and if he's on the court, that's a game changer. So I love both these kids. I love both of them, and I'm safer with Brandon Ingram. I believe, if you ask my opinion, I'm safer going the Brandon Ingram route than I would the Zion route, and that's just because of injury history and what we've seen thus far. But I think those are both great players to entertain, especially if you want to keep Dame happy and keep Dame in a competitive environment.
All right, we're talking with NBA insider Flex from Jersey right now on the Rip City Drive. What do you think Charlotte's going to do at number 2? Will they take? Will they look to go forward and take the guy out of Alabama? Are they going to go with Scoot, or do you think they might entertain a trade idea? What makes the most sense for the Hornets?
I think, listen, if it were me and the people I'm talking to, I keep feeling like they're looking at the kid from Alabama, Brandon Miller. I just don't think that they can pass up that kid at 2. And again, they got a plethora of point guard issues over there, so Scoot just doesn't make sense. But at the same time, you're a franchise right now that's in flux. You need a lot of things. So if you can trade that number 2 pick and get some more sustained basketball players, some more veteran basketball players in there, established players, I think you have to look at that too. So if I would say they're leaning towards Brandon Miller or trading the pick. I just really don't see a situation where Scoot ends up at number 2 in Charlotte, especially with that logjam they got at the guard position.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit on you now, Flex. Phoenix is named Frank Vogel, the coach. What did you think of the hire?
I love it. I'm a New Jersey guy. Frank is from Wildwood, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. If you're from New Jersey, you play basketball, you coach in New Jersey, I know about you, man. So, I've known about Frank for a long time. Have a lot of people within that circle that speak highly of Frank. I thought he got a bad Godfather. I thought he got a bad rap with the Lakers.
Yeah.
I mean, he went there a year, won a championship. The second year he ran into the Suns, and I remember doing shows around that time and feeling like, whoever won that series in the first round was going to the finals. I thought the Suns and the Lakers were the best 2 teams in the West that year. They just happened to play in the first round. And they, let's not forget, the Lakers were up 2-1 with a Game 4 at Staples. And then Anthony Davis got hurt. Anthony Davis hurt his groin, and it shifted that series. Do I think the Suns could have won that series? Absolutely. But am I going to sit here and deny the fact that them having Anthony Davis out with a bad groin didn't help the situation? That's not true either. So I think there's a chance where if that switches a little bit, you're talking about Frank Vogel potentially taking that team to 2 straight NBA finals. And then the third year, he's the coach. He's not the GM. He's not Rob Pelinka. Rob Pelinka decided to put the oldest roster in basketball together and trade everything he had for Russell Westbrook, and it just didn't work. And they needed a scapegoat, and I thought Frank was the perfect guy at that time. So I think he got a bad rap. He's a defensive savant, defensive genius, one of the top defensive coaches on planet Earth from the people I've spoken to. And again, the Suns keep Kevin Young as an offensive coordinator. This kid's going to be a head coach in basketball one day. And then they bring Fizdale from Utah, who was in their front office last year, who won a championship with Vogel on that bench in LA. So I think they're building a pretty good core on that bench. And I love the hire, Godfather. I love it.
Good.
All right, Flex, the Suns, what are their intentions with DeAndre Ayton? Are they going to keep him or are they going to look to deal him?
I'm going to keep saying it, man. The people I'm talking to and the conversations I'm having, I believe DeAndre Ayton is probably going to get moved this summer. I think it's best for both sides. I think the Suns need a change, and especially with the Frank Vogel thing, I think they're looking to change the dynamic of that basketball team a little bit and reconstruct things a little bit. And I think DeAndre needs a fresh new start. He's 24 years old. The kid is uber talented, untapped potential. And I think he's got to go to a system that's going to utilize his skills better. He's never going to be able to be DeAndre Ayton, the 24-year-old first overall pick, in an offense where you got Devin Booker and Kevin Durant running the show. It's just you're not gonna get what you're supposed to get from DeAndre. So I do think they'll move him, at some point this summer. And then there's a lot of deals on the table for DeAndre, a lot of interest in DeAndre. So I do think he'll get moved.
Do you think the Blazers have interest in DeAndre Ayton?
I do. And I've had a lot of conversations about this, and I've heard some people, try to debunk that theory and say, no, Portland doesn't have interest in DeAndre. I think they do. I believe the people I'm talking to. I think for the right price, I think people look at the DeAndre and Portland situation and they automatically go to the third pick or Dame and stuff like that. And I think there's a lot of different ways to navigate this. I think if Portland can get their hands on DeAndre, and they'd be happy to do so. With that said, what is it going to take, and how creative a team's going to get in a DeAndre Ayton deal, especially with all the other stuff moving around? That's the real question. But I emphatically believe if Portland can get their hands on DeAndre Ayton, they'd be happy to do it.
And where is Chris Paul going to end up?
I think he's coming back, Godfather. Listen, the Chris Paul situation is pretty unique, okay? He's on a non-guaranteed contract. So in theory, with a guaranteed contract, if you cut a guy, you can't bring him back. If you trade him and he gets waived, you can't bring him back. But because he's on a non-guaranteed contract, the Suns theoretically can waive him for $15.8 million and then bring him back for $2.6 million, which is the veteran minimum. You're taking his $30 million number and making it $18.4. That's cap gymnastics, basically, right? But that's what they're doing. That's what they prefer to do, is say, hey, Chris, at 38, 39, you're not a $30 million point guard anymore. If we can bring you in and drop that number by $12 million, that would be a perfect world. And I think that's what they're talking about. And if they can't come to an agreement there, then the Suns are indeed looking at moving him or potentially waiving him, Godfather. Here's an interesting thing. You waive him, you stretch him over 5 years, you drop the $15 million cap hit to $3 million, and then you acquire the $12.2 million mid-level, the higher mid-level, to go in free agency and get a younger point guard. So there's a lot of dynamics, but I think when the dust settles, he loves Phoenix. Phoenix loves him. I think he'll probably come back at the lower number when it's all said and done.
All right, what are the Nets' intentions with Mikal Bridges?
Keep him. Come on. Hey, you've been asking me about this for a long time, Chad. Let me tell you, they love Mikal Bridges. And I know you guys love Mikal, and I love Mikal.
He's awesome.
One of my favorite guys on planet Earth. That kid's a keeper. And if the Nets find a way to fumble that, there's going to be a lot of people really mad at them in Brooklyn. I think you just got to hang on to Mikal Bridges. I can tell you, they were offered 4 first-round picks already for him, and they said no. And that's the cap. So I don't know what you can offer for Mikal. You're going to have to really up the antes. And I'm not saying what you can offer Portland. I'm saying in general, if you want Mikal Bridges, you're going to pay a stiff price. That kid's one of the best two-way players in the world. The kid's terrific.
Flex, let's look ahead to next season. Do you expect to see the West as competitive as it was this year with all the parity, where it's kind of anybody's title to win in the West? Do you expect to see that again?
You know what, Godfather? Great question. There's a lot of moving pieces this year. There's a lot of people that are going to move this offseason. And so I am hearing a lot about Western Conference teams. So I do think the West is going to get better next year. I don't think it will be as even keel or as steady as it was this year. I do think there's going to be some dynamic names that are going to go out West and make it a different conference. And, I hate to sound biased here, but, just talking about the Suns in general, they're literally sitting in a position, Godfather, where they become a destination like they used to be in the 90s. Danny Manning took a 1-year, $1 million deal as the top free agent in basketball back in 94 to come play with the Suns. Tom Chambers was the first free agent. I say that to say there are players that are now looking at this free agency and saying, that's a prime destination. That's Kevin Durant. That's Devin Booker. Do I go there for a little less money for 1 year and then jump into free agency the following year? And we've seen that with Golden State. I think you're going to start to see some of that with Phoenix. I think the Lakers are in an interesting situation. I think they'll get better. Golden State is going to revamp that roster. They'll get better. Houston has a ton of cap money. The Spurs have a ton of cap money. The Portland Trail Blazers are like the mystery team that can do a whole lot this offseason and change the landscape. So I think the West is going to be significantly better. Not to mention the NBA champions potentially tonight are sitting in that same Western Conference. So I think it's going to get tougher.
Hey, final question for you, Flex. With the Nuggets, if they finish this off and become champs, do you think this is a one-off, or with their nucleus and the youth they have on the roster, they got a chance to put together a run where they could grab 1 or 2 more?
You know what, Chad? I've been asked this question, and I hate to sound disrespectful because I'm a purist, and to me, you win an NBA championship, man. You deserve all the credit. I think that, like Godfather said, I think this was a strange basketball season. I think that's a very good basketball team. I don't look at them as a team that they might win a championship, Chad, and not come back as a favorite. And you don't see that often. I don't think they're a team that you look at and say, man, they could rack off 3, 4, 2 or 3 or 3. I just don't see it. I don't know if this team is actually as good as there's just some things about this basketball team that I sit here and I say, man, there's some holes on that team, and they were able to get potentially a championship out of it, and good for them. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I think this might be a one-off. This might be one where you got it done. Good for you. Congratulations. You did your job. But I don't know if that team is a team that I'm ready to say can have a dynasty or anything like that.
All right. He is on Twitter at Flex from Jersey. He is our NBA insider, the Coast to Coast podcast, 98.7 Suns postgame show. Also KSRN down in Arizona, part of the Believe Podcast Network. Felix, Flex Cruz. Enjoy the game tonight, brother. We love talking ball with you, and we're just over a week away from the draft, so we got a lot of good things in store for us, man. It's going to be awesome.